Welcome to All Four Downs, part of the CMG Sports Podcast Network. I am Joe Aguirre, be joined by Obi Moniz in a second. Boy, this College Bowl season got off to a pretty great start in the College Bowl mania, man. I was killing it. All of a sudden, things are starting to even off. Obi and I will take a look at the New Year's Six Bowls. We'll talk about the national championship game and what is wrong with college football. Seeing so many guys end up in the transfer portal, starters, quarterbacks, running backs. If only there was someone who could guide these young men to a brighter future. Because with college football playoffs, it seems like these bowl games are getting less and less important. What's going to happen when we expand out to 12 teams? Are these bowl games going to matter at all? We'll get into that and so much more on this week's All Four Downs. Ovi, I don't know what's going on, my man. I really don't.
I'm
It's a
really
little
dumbfounded about
disappointing.
all this. I
Yeah.
honestly, because you look at the Wisconsin and Oklahoma State game, and you're like expecting that these students, because that's what they are, they're students, to be actively involved. It's still a season, and what I don't understand is how can the NCAA allow this to happen where people could just pack up and leave?
They've
Okay,
lost control. That's why.
totally controlled. And it started with the head coaches. Honestly, when you have head coaches making decisions like, you know what, I'm taking this contract, I'm moving to the different school, you're leaving the students behind. So I honestly understand why students do this. These student athletes, excuse me, that they're going ahead and say, you know what, this is not working for me, I'm leaving. But what I am really like trying to understand, you are a starter of your position. Like that is yours. You own it. And like the quarterback from Oklahoma State, Sanders, right? He's put himself in a transfer portal. Why? I just don't understand what why is that? I understand if maybe you're losing your job or you just got taken out as a starter during the season, someone else took over your job and then you want to move somewhere else. I totally understand. I got it. I'll take my talent somewhere else, like Bo Nix. Bo Nix left, the coach left, so the coach got fired from Auburn. He was like, "Well, I'm not sticking around. I am going to Oregon." I can see why that happened. Okay. But now it's getting out of hand to where, look, nothing ever does anything like, for example, Major League Baseball. At the end of the season, then the transaction starts happening. You don't see coaches get fired in the middle of the season and then they take a job somewhere else. That just doesn't happen. Look in the NFL. Hackett got fired by the Denver Broncos. He got fired. It's not like he left and took another job and said, you know what, I'm going to go and coach the San Francisco 49ers. It's not happening. So what is wrong with the NCAA? Why is this getting out of hand? I don't even have, I mean, I could have a solution. Maybe a lot of people will disagree with me, but something has to happen, man, because this is out of control.
Well, here's the question. Who's in charge of college football?
Well, to answer your question is every conference is in charge of their own schools. The
Right.
NCAA lost that power when we started implementing the Neal law and stuff like that. Now they're in the backseat looking and be like, okay, you don't like the methods that I'm doing with the whole entire NCAA. I'm going to sit back and watch you guys handle it. And sure enough, it's getting out of hand. Okay. How many times does a student athlete need to transfer? Question number one, because I already seen every year a student transferring, like JT Daniels, excuse me, who started with USC, transferred to Georgia. Now he's playing for West Virginia. Okay. How many times can a student athlete transfer? Okay. And then two, when can this happen? Shouldn't be a window to, like, let's say, all right, on February, right? Or the day after the national championship, that's when the transfer portal should turn on. and it should lead in to a closing time maybe by, let me see, April 1st. I think that sounds reasonable.
Listen, Major League Baseball, nothing happens until the day after the World Series. That's how this should go. And again, I think when you don't have central leadership, every conference really is for itself, right? Uh, the conference, um, what do you call it there? The powers that be there that have put down the college football playoffs and all that. You know,
Right. The
they're
college football committee.
yeah, for all intents and
Mhm.
purposes, they're the SEC, is what they are, and that's really their main focus is making sure everything is fine in the SEC and in allowing all the nonsense to happen everywhere else. This is what's happened. This sport, I'm telling you right now, ESPN has a lot of money invested in these bowl games. And I think you'll agree, and again, just in playing this bowl mania thing, at first, I recently changed my pick to Alabama in their game. I wasn't going to pick Bama. I didn't think Bryce Young or Will Anderson were going to play, and now they are going to play, much to my surprise. I'm shocked that they're playing, but now I think Bama wins that game. When
But are
I
you shocked because of it's Nick Saban? You know what I mean? Like that's the coach. No one's gonna say no to that
I
guy.
would, but again, you have to understand if those two guys were like, listen, I got a ton of money to make in the NFL. I'm not playing in this stupid game. We're a 2-loss team. It's not like we're going to win a national championship. Sorry. You would understand that. You could understand that. But again, they're playing. So kudos to those guys.
Yeah,
And
but
you're
it's a
right.
it's the culture of that particular school. But
Well,
now
that
we
school's
see it.
on a
We're
whole
seeing the
other
trend,
level. Again, I
right?
think what you're seeing is the other conferences.
Mhm.
The other conferences that aren't the SEC and get treated like not the SEC, it's chaos right now. And again, I think it's making some of these bowl games a little less interesting. I think it's a little harder to predict who's going to win if you don't even know who's going to be playing. And again, right, we're talking about starting quarterbacks and starting running backs, star defensive players. In the case of Oklahoma, it's
So,
hard. It's hard to watch these games
mhm.
when the guys who have been there all year aren't there. And again, when you expand these college football playoffs, I just wonder, is it going to make a lot of these bowl games completely moot and not worth watching?
That is true. I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from on that one, and I think maybe we looked at the expansion at a different level, right? We're always concentrating on who is legitimate, the true champion. And now that we've been covering this for 3 years now, college football, right? You start seeing that trend to where the bowl games is not a priority. They're meaningless. Like back in the days when I was growing up, all the bowl games were on the first day of the year,
Yep.
right? And then we would be how you say it, we would get upset because we couldn't watch all these games
Yeah.
because all these games happen at once and you
Yep.
only had like 3 channels that will cover college football, right? And then all of a sudden now that you have all this technology, all this streaming services and everything else, that you would think that each player or whatever get exploited and everyone could see these guys, but we're not because these guys are opting out, you know. Maybe that's why they want to expand the playoffs so that we could keep these players to continue playing in bowl games, right? So technically, you only got really 2 bowl games to worry about, right? That 2 semifinal games. Now you don't have to worry about it because now expanded to 12 teams. So at least 12 college teams all going to be in there. Everybody else, not so much, right? But
Yep.
there's got to be an incentive. There got to be something to keep these players to play. And if I was the one, and I understand, he was like, well, you don't know what you're talking about, man. There's millions of dollars invested in the NFL. Tell me which player that opted out not to play is the star or the face of the NFL. I want to know who that person is because I haven't seen it yet. I
Right.
haven't seen anyone that opted out of a bowl game so that they could get ready for the NFL. Right now, I know like a lot of Florida players a couple of years ago opted out, right? And Oklahoma beat Florida. They spanked them, right? Because they were playing their second, third string. Well, a lot of those players are in the NFL, but they're not starters. So how are you preparing yourself for the NFL? I think it's ridiculous. I think that this is the time you're supposed to shine because you have the national spotlight in the bowl games and everybody sees you. I don't have to wait to the Senior Bowl because I don't even take the Senior Bowl seriously, to be honest with you. I take these bowl games seriously.
Yeah. Now,
And
didn't
you're matching,
Kyle
hold on, before you start, hold on. The bowl games are designed to a matchup. Okay, watch this. They're supposed to mirror. They're supposed to match them up so you got that competition. But if you opt out, does that mean you're going to opt out in the NFL too when you don't make the playoffs? Just saying. But go ahead.
I think Kyle Pitts was one of those guys at Florida,
Yes.
right? That opted out.
Hmm.
Again, I mentioned Bryce Young and I mentioned Will Anderson. Both guys have every reason not to play. Those are two extremely high, potentially high draft picks. And I could understand if those guys had opted out. But again, both have announced that they're playing.
Hmm.
And so again, I think when you're talking about Alabama and Nick Saban, you're talking about a program that does things the right way, and certainly takes advantage and things are certain the deck is stacked in their favor. But again, they're still one of those programs that is delivering and they deliver every single year. And so kudos to Bama and kudos to those two guys for sticking it out. And listen, I agree with you, Ovi. To me, uh I think one of the worst things in the NFL happened a couple of years ago, long before Deshaun Watson and we found out what a creeper he was. This guy went 4-12 and wanted out and cried like a baby to get moved out of town. And I don't know if the Texans knew maybe already kind of what was going on when
Yo,
they
he wanted
decided.
out because he knew exactly what was going to happen.
I think right. I think there was definitely that part of the equation there, but I thought to myself, dude, one bad season and this guy wants out. I don't know. Like
It
Cleveland
was
invested a lot
personal.
of money and a lot of draft picks into that guy, and I worry. I worry when a guy behaves that way, and I think you should look at these guys who are opting out and guys who are going into the transfer portal. That says to, again, you mentioned JT Daniels. This is the third time through. You know,
Yes. Hmm.
I would question that guy's decision making
No,
like
but
in a
JT Daniel
major
is
way,
different
dude.
because like he was supposed to be the starter of Georgia, right?
Right.
And things were unbalanced in USC. He wasn't going to get the starting job. You could tell this guy he has, he's a star.
Tom
Okay.
Brady didn't get the starting job at Michigan,
Hmm. And he
and he
stuck it
stuck
out
it
in
out.
Michigan. Right.
Yeah, stuck it out, and look how that turned out. So I'm sorry. To me, uh,
But
I
JT
I
Daniels is
wouldn't.
exceptional
I wouldn't.
because
He's not exceptional.
no,
He is
because Stetson
not
Bennett
exceptional.
decided to stay in Georgia for his 6th year. Okay. And he was like, look, you staying here. He's a starter. Why am I here? He probably because he was promised to be a
Beat
starter.
him out. Beat you're the better talent. Beat the guy out.
Mac
Man
Jones
up.
did it. Mac Jones did it. So you're right. You're absolutely right.
Man up.
Um, and that's the thing. People are not manning up. This is another generation of student athletes that claim that they are deserved or owned to be at certain positions, and they're not happy at the current college that they chose, and they want to go somewhere else. That's bottom line what it is.
Yep.
But hey, listen, this show is still brought to you by the CMG Sports Podcast with our CEO, the owner, Joe Aguirre. So thank you very much. This is all four down. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's CMG Sports, CMG Central. And we are covering the Capital One Bowl Mania. And if you didn't um, sign up to join our Bowl Mania challenge uh, next season, there's room for you. But I'm gonna tell you right now, the person that's on top is the one and only Ovi1, baby,
Yeah.
because I know what's up. I know what's going on. All right. Now, Joe and the rest of the people that signed up, they were trying to hang with me. And for some odd reason, they just couldn't get it done.
I
Couldn't
was
get the
10
job
and
done.
6. 10 and 6. I was doing pretty well, and now I'm 12 and 11, although about to go to 13 and 11. But man, yeah, here comes Hector.
So Hector's a one get behind me. I'm in for first place.
What's your
But
record?
my record, I got 16 wins already.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
I know. I know. But I take this personally because I'm gonna put his comment again. Hector V, who is also the host of All Four Downs, the NFL picks, and he's got me by 16 game lead in our NFL picks. So I am doing wonders here. So if he could get me there, I'm definitely getting here in college football because this is my piece of the pie. This is my pride that I am invested in. So I have to win. I'm like John Cena WWE. I have to win. I got to win the title. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But Joe, I mean, there's still plenty of football.
Oh,
You can still
plenty of
catch up,
football.
but I don't think you're in my level.
No, I don't think so.
But hey, man, let's talk about some picks, man. Let's start with the first one real quick, okay? We have the Tennessee versus Clemson. And again, we're only going to be discussing the New Year's Six bowls and stuff like that. What's your take? Who you favor in this game?
I am taking in this game the Clemson Tigers. Um, Tennessee was such a good team earlier this year. The wheels have come off the bus. Obviously, Hendon Hooker, things just ended really poorly. And while Clemson has also made a change at the quarterback position, I think that one's to their benefit. And I just think Clemson's got a better overall defense. And I tell you, I don't think Tennessee. I just don't think Tennessee's going to be able to. They're not going to be able to score like they did during the season against this Clemson defense. So it's going to be a close game, but I think Clemson wins this one.
I'm with you there. I think if DJ Ugalele was going to be the starter, he went ahead and went on the transfer portal because he lost his starting job. I mean, he got kicked out 3 times during the season. So good for him. I think he's going to the Pac-12. But besides that, this is all Clemson, and this is home field advantage for the Clemson because they've been there before. And the last 2 bowls, I mean, they defeated a Big 10 team, a Big 12 team. The last time they were there at the Orange Bowl, it was a semifinals game. And they went ahead and I think they defeated Oklahoma 37-17. So they're no stranger to the Orange Bowl. But as far as Tennessee, this is their first rodeo in a New Year's Six bowl in a very long time, especially with
Yep.
their head coach. So with experience, and I know the numbers are showing that points per game Tennessee, but you also got to look at the teams that they've played that scored so much compared to Clemson. They were dealing with a lot of stuff going on through their season. But I do respect you on that pick. I do respect the spread. I'm taking the spread with this game. I'm taking Clemson. Moving on to Alabama versus Kansas State. You mentioned that the starters, no one's leaving and no excuses whatsoever for Alabama, but there is a lot to prove, especially for Bryce Young. He is projected to be the #1 draft pick in the NFL 2023 and preferably maybe going to Houston. I still claim that is a mistake. I don't think he's a deserving #1 pick overall because to me, he reminds me of Tua Tagovailoa, whatever his name it is, right? Um, Mr. Concussion. All right.
Yeah.
This guy's a lightweight, and you're gonna have him the #1 pick overall. And the dude can't even he doesn't even weigh near 200 pounds.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have him in there. He's not that tall. Okay. And if I'm telling you, I am more nervous for Bryce Young right now to get into the NFL. than ever before, man. I just don't think he is that caliber, number one. Now, he is talented at Alabama, but look at these quarterbacks that come out. Look at Mac Jones. Look at Tua. Both of them coming from Alabama. The only one, Jalen Hurst, which bounced from Alabama to Oklahoma. I think he got tuned up very well in Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley, and he's doing a phenomenal job with the Philadelphia Eagles. Bryce Young, he might do well where he is at right now, but there's a big difference going to the NFL. But in this game, he has a lot to prove. I'm taking 6.5. And if you're on Sugar House, I would adjust that spread and make it -11. Get your money's worth on that because Alabama will spank Kansas State.
Oh, I think you're disrespecting Kansas State. I think this is a pretty good football team. They're not going to win this football game, but I do think that they could keep this thing relatively close. I think Alabama probably clears 6.5. I think they win this game by 10 or 12 points, but I don't think Kansas. I mean, Kansas State's a pretty solid team.
Kansas State
And
has not played a team like Alabama's defense. I'm sorry. Like, I understand that Alabama
oh,
had its ups and downs within the
Kansas State
conference,
hasn't played a defense like that in their
but
program's
Kansas State's
history. I
schedule
get
doesn't
it.
match Alabama. I'm
I
sorry.
get it.
This is
I,
this is a blowout. Alabama's gonna crush them.
I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I really don't.
Fair
I
enough.
think they'll cover 6.5, but I don't think it's going to be 20 or I don't think it's going to be that bad of a game. I think Kansas State will hang. I think Kansas State will be leading at halftime.
I doubt that to happen. I think by halftime it'll be 24-10.
Kansas State
Alabama.
will be leading this game 17-14 at the half. And I think Bama will put them away in the third quarter.
Well, put your
And
money in there, baby. Put your money. Come
I'm
join me
ready.
on DraftKings.
Let's do it.
Yes, let's do it. I like it. But I also will look look at the passing yards allowed. They average over 200 yards to a team that they know how to throw the ball and those talented receivers. And you said that they're going to be in the lead. Okay.
You'll
Just
see.
saying, the numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. All right, moving on to USC versus Tulane. Now, I'm surprised that the spread is 2 points. Tulane from the American Conference versus a Pac-12 team that this year alone, I got to admit, the Pac-12 has been more competitive than any other years I've covered college football. And it's only 3, really. But
Yeah.
this is the most competitive. USC, Oregon, Utah, UCLA, Oregon State, Washington. I mean, these guys put it up. Like, they beef each other up. Then you go against Tulane. Who has Tulane played? And they struggle within their own conference.
Yeah.
They had a winning season, but I think Caleb Williams will demonstrate what a Heisman Trophy winner looks like.
Well, I don't think he deserved the Heisman Trophy. I told you I bet against Tulane 3 times at the end of their season, and all 3 times I got burned. I've got Tulane winning this football game. I think they win the game by a field goal late. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not underestimating this Tulane team. And again, I have felt like USC has been overrated all year. And Caleb Williams, I don't know. I mean, he's a great football player. He just doesn't do it for me.
Listen, I feel you. I feel you. I'm agree with you that Caleb Williams should not have won. I think Max Duggan should be the most qualified, most. I mean, he was the MVP. He was everything what a Heisman Trophy winner is supposed to be, right? And we discussed this with PFF Max Chadwick, right? And you look at the numbers. I respect the stats for USC because they did it within their own conference. But I just don't see that they have enough. The Tulane has enough talent to go ahead and win this game. Okay, I really don't.
They
I
shouldn't.
do. I wouldn't be surprised if both teams put up big numbers, but at the end, I think USC is going to prevail and win.
They should. On paper, it makes all the sense in the world. And that's why I just don't think it's going to happen.
And that's why you are where you are right now. Utah versus Penn State, baby.
I really like this Utah football team. I think they go in there. I think they beat up Penn State pretty good. I feel like Penn State's going to do what they did against Ohio State, where you're in the third quarter and you're like, all right. And then all of a sudden the wheels come off the bus. I think Utah pulls away in the third and fourth quarter. And I think this ends up being maybe a 20-point win by Utah.
I was looking into head coach Franklin from Penn State and the job that he has done with Penn State and leading into the Rose Bowl. He has never won a Rose Bowl before. Okay. And the last time he was there, he lost by 3 to USC. And I believe that was in 2016. Um, but Penn State, they know how to do good against other teams, but when it comes to a ranked opponent, top 10 opponent, they just don't seem to have the formula to win those type of games. The last time we on this show, I did say that Penn State should be able to defeat Utah. I am going to change my mind on this one. I think Utah is a better team,
Yep.
being that it's at the Rose Bowl, and it's almost like a home field advantage for Utah anyway. And I know Penn State has a better defense by paper, but it's almost close with Utah. I mean, 18 points, averaging to 20. It's the same thing, man. But Utah knows how to throw it up, and I'm taking Utah on this one. Utah wins by 3 points again. I give them that. It'll be a field goal win.
I think it'll be better than a field goal win, but yeah, I think you're exactly right. Utah knows how to score points. You know,
Absolutely.
I if I'm not
There's
mistaken, I
never a drought like Penn
no,
State.
that's yeah,
Penn State might be up in the first half. They could be in the lead, but
yeah,
somewhere down the line in the second half. I mean, you saw them when they were playing Ohio State
yeah.
and Michigan. Like, what happened to this team?
Yep. Yeah, they tend to fall apart in the third quarter against really good football teams, and Utah's a good football team, so they're in trouble.
All right, the semifinals is Georgia versus Ohio State, Michigan versus TCU. I've stayed away from the news on this because if you keep on and on and on, it's just going to get old. And, you try to get that hype, and that hype might not be there. And please don't be surprised if both these games are blowouts. Please don't be surprised. I mean, that's why they have a semifinals to weed away from those teams that don't really deserve to be in the finals. That's pretty much what it is. All right. But let's break it down the numbers real quick. And we'll start with TCU versus Michigan. I know Michigan's favorite at 7.5, over under 58. But Michigan's defense, just the defense alone, are just going to stop TCU. I wouldn't be surprised if this is shutout or maybe lead up to maybe one or two field goals. But TCU is going to have a difficult time scoring a touchdown against a beautiful, most talented defense Michigan has in history.
Max will get into the end zone. He will somehow dog his way into the end zone. I do agree with you. I do think Michigan will end up blowing them out. I think TCU will not be able to run the football. They kind of struggled against Kansas State to really run the football. Again, Max Duggan had to do amazing things just for them to not win that football game. So I think coming off of that one, and again, I've been high on TCU for about half the season now.
But now you can
I
stop now. Now you can
yeah,
stop. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I don't think that they don't have the talent to match up with Michigan here, and I think you're exactly right. I think they're going to really struggle to score. I don't think Michigan is going to have that problem at all. Um, you know, I think Michigan will score close to 40 points, and I think TCU will struggle to get to 13 points.
It's gonna be a good test in the first quarter. I think both teams will feel each other, but Michigan will run away, and I think the run game is gonna help them. I think that offensive line for Michigan is far superior. They're gonna make holes for their running backs to run through, and big ups to Michigan. And this is gonna lead into my next one right here, which is Ohio State versus Georgia. Another game, but there's just something like I want to say 100% Georgia's going to win. I'll give them 85, 86% chance of winning. Their favorite 6.5. The number did shrink to 7.5 before. Now it's 6.5. Don't know why, but Georgia's defense is probably the best defense in the nation. I know
Yeah.
I gave Michigan credit, but Georgia, as far as number one, look at they're averaging 12 points a game.
And
Okay,
where is this game being played?
in
I
Atlanta,
mean,
which is
give
a
me a
home field
break.
advantage for
Give me
Georgia.
a break. Again, I don't know why you're so worried about Georgia.
I'm not
I
worried, but
think,
the thing is that when you're too cocky, you know what I mean? When you have that cockiness and you
yeah.
got that job, how many stories or documentaries have we watched that there was this team that was supposed to win, right? And they were too cocky and everything else, and the other team they just stayed quiet, they just listened, and then boom, they hit them in the face, right?
Well, did that
Um,
did that team get blown out at home to Michigan? Because that's in that story, that's not usually what had happened. Yeah, look,
no,
everybody thought Ohio State was kind of suspect. That Michigan game answered a lot of questions for a lot of people. There's
mhm.
some skepticism whether Ohio State should even be in this game. I just think this game being at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I don't see how Georgia. I don't think there's any reason to be concerned about this. I think this is going to also be a blowout game, just like the TCU Michigan game. I think this is a matter of one of these teams is superior to the other one, and that is the Dogs.
And it's the difference between schedule. Georgia had a harder schedule than Ohio State. I
Yeah,
mean, the Big Ten really the only thing beautiful about the Big Ten is Ohio State and Michigan. Those
yeah,
are the only two teams that we look forward to. And the SEC, you got to worry about everybody except for Vanderbilt, right? I
true,
mean,
very
let's be
true.
serious, you
Yeah.
know. I mean, some of these schools they were off, but you still cannot take none of these schools lightly unless you got the V. But it is what it is. But my prediction here, and I'll go back: Georgia and Michigan in the national championship.
100%. Yeah. And I think Georgia wins a pretty good ball game. I think it'll be a low scoring affair, but I think Georgia in the end will end up winning by double digits, 10, 12 points.
This is a rematch from the semifinals of last year, but next week I will definitely will cover the national championship, who wins, who loses, and the fact that we're also going to be talking about the NFL draft, which players should be there, which team, and everything else. So, listen, this has been fun, and man, it's just the season's coming to a close.
It's been a hell of a season. I'll tell you
Yes,
that. It's been very exciting. Um, it's funny because earlier in the year, I was so high on Oklahoma 3 games in. I thought that I thought that team had it together. And boy, talking about wheels falling off the bus. What a disaster that was. What
I
a
think
disaster.
there's two claims that I am going to remember in this season: USC and Ohio State. They're never as good as everyone else predicted that we are going to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was right. I did catch myself. I did, and you caught me. You caught me. But I stuck to my guns. I said Georgia and Michigan, and sure enough, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So
100%. I, I,
hundred
I, I
percent.
anybody who's watching, you got to put your money there. Put your
Mhm.
money on Georgia and Michigan. You will not be disappointed.
Well, it's time for the final whistle. I know you got a lot of stuff to get off your chest. So without further ado, the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, thank you, sir. Clemson's defensive coordinator last season was Brent Venables, who skipped the Tigers' bowl win over Iowa State because he'd left the program 3 weeks earlier to become the head coach at Oklahoma. Well, Venables is one of those guys that talks about loyalty, saying that he doesn't want his players skipping out on bowl games to get to the business of furthering their careers, whether it's through the transfer portal or protecting themselves for the NFL draft. Do as I say, not as I do. That is the mantra of many college football coaches. But why should players be loyal when the coaches aren't? Why should players sacrifice for the greater good when their coaches never do? 4 Sooners have pulled the Venables. They're skipping the Cheez-It Bowl for business reasons. That includes offensive tackles Anton Harrison and Wayne Morris, tailback Eric Gray, and defensive end Jalen Redmond. None of those guys will be on the sidelines tomorrow night when OU plays Florida State in Orlando. And while Dylan Gabriel will quarterback the Sooners, several other squads are not so lucky. Notre Dame, OSU, Wisconsin, and Pittsburgh will all play bowl games without their starting quarterback. These are team captains and leaders who bailed on their teams. College bowl games are starting to lose their luster, and playing them without star players could well be the death of them as college football expands the playoffs. You know, if only college football had leaders who could teach these young men about seeing a season through all the way to the end. That's it for this week's show. Thank you for watching and Happy New Year. For Ovi Muniz, I'm Joe Aguirre. We'll catch you next week for All 4 Downs.